Welcome, all of you, on this wonderful journey where every time we meet a personality who has made significant contribution in their professional undertakings. The common thread of the series is that all these people are long-time meditators. And when people are as successful as these guests are, we want to hear from them how meditation helps them. In this episode, we have not one but two guests, the duo of the much acclaimed band Seven Eyes. Their style is far from conventional and is best described as ever evolving world music that is a harmonious blend of diverse cultures, languages, and musical genres. Their compositions transcend multiple genres: jazz, Brazilian, Sufi, Hindustani, and Western classical. Do join me in welcoming my first guest with a background of European classical training, the much acclaimed Paulo Vinicius from Brazil. Hi, Paulo. Welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely my pleasure to have you on the show. Paulo Vinicius, composer, performer, and music director from Brazil, who has studied music from some of the world's top classical guitarists, and that has equipped him with a versatile, dynamic technique and a captivating stage presence. The other guest on my show is from Switzerland. She spent several childhood years living in North India, where language, diverse music, and culture started making an impression on her. She spent years learning Hindustani classical, and yet her flexible vocal style has given her opportunities to perform with world renowned artists and at platforms like the Cannes Film Festival. A double master's with distinction in international performance research. Welcome, Tanya Wells.
Thank you, Monica. Hi.
Really lovely to be talking to you both. And Tanya, Paulo, both of you joining us from Geneva, Switzerland. So, what is the weather like?
The weather is freezing, as you can see. We are all wrapped up nice and warm and getting ready for the coming. It must be nice and sunny where you are.
It is nice and sunny, and for you, I think it's probably equivalent to a summer. So, first of all, Tanya and Paulo, congratulations on your journey thus far and also on your two albums, The Seed and Senses, which I understand have been enthusiastically received by audiences in the UK, Europe, North America, Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent. So, how does that feel?
Well, it feels wonderful, making music is always a labor of love, and it's so fulfilling when we're able to see the response of people who hear our music, whether it is actually from the CDs or whether we perform live. So it's always a very gratifying feeling.
I'm sure it is. So, Paulo and Tanya, I know you both continuously travel worldwide performing, and you performed at the United Nations in New York, you in Geneva, TEDx Malaysia, Jashn-e-Rekhta Festival in New Delhi, Faiz International Festival in Nahor. And I just want to ask you, how has the experience traversing the globe been?
Oh, it's fantastic. My goodness, I think music gives us this opportunity to connect to people that we otherwise wouldn't be connected, and to be introduced to different cultures, different countries, and that is wonderful. That makes us like culturally richer, and artistically that's very important for our creation as well. So we understand better the different expressions, cultural expressions of different people. So we are so fascinating about traveling, meeting people, and that is really a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially the kind of work you both are doing, you're right that it must be a very enriching experience to travel and be exposed to different cultures. Awesome. So you are regulars on BBC Asian Network, BBC Urdu, BBC World, YouTube, etc. And I have seen various interviews of you, and there is an element of your lives which remains yet untouched. And you know what I'm talking about. The fact that you both have meditation as an integral part of your lives, and when you're as acclaimed and accomplished as you both are, it is important for people to hear from you as to how you benefit from meditation, what you have to say to listeners listening to you? And definitely, there's a lot to talk about, but let's take our listeners through the journey right from the beginning at what age or how you got introduced to meditation.
Well, I was actually, my parents both practice Sahaj Yoga meditation. So I was born into the practice. Yeah, I was very fortunate to also experience some Sahaj schooling when I was young. So that was my first experience of really being immersed in Indian culture was actually in India. I went to a school in Himachal Pradesh in the north of India, and there was an international boarding school there. So we would meditate every morning together, sing bhajan, and then go about our daily school business. And I was there with my sisters for just over 3 years as a child. So it left a very impressionable, it was very impressionable. It was an impressionable experience for me because it was just full of, first of all, we were in an amazing setting. So the nature was in abundance and we were at the foothills of the Himalayas. And I think I look back at that experience as something that still inspires me today. I draw a lot of inspiration from my childhood and also from the experience of meditation as well, and the experience of learning Hindustani classical music. We studied Indian classical dance as well. Not that I dance today, but there's always that sort of imagination, that richness of expression and ras, you can say in Hindustani, in Hindi, this expression of mood. So I was very grateful to have that experience, and then I continued meditating throughout my life and have always been part of the Sahaj community growing up. So it's always been a blessing for me because I've always had a very big global family, as it were. So, you meet people from different parts of the world who also practice Sahaj Yoga meditation, and it's just such an enriching relationship as well with friends because you go to a place that's very deep together and you grow together as well. So I've been very grateful actually for my experience in Sahaj Yoga throughout my life.
For me, the first contact I had with Sahaj Yoga, I think this is very relative as well because we basically have little messages before getting in contact, like
Little
signs and call, and I remember in 2008 when I traveled Argentina for a tour as a soloist, a classical guitar tour that I did there. I saw some posters of Sahaj Yoga program in all the places that I went in Argentina, and I felt wow, I think I know this lady that was there in the post, and I felt that I really wanted to go to the program there. However, as the tour schedule was a bit tight, I couldn't do that in Argentina. And then when I went back to Brazil, there was a program, cultural program of Indian music, Indian dance and meditation. They advertised like that, and an introduction to Sahaj meditation, and that was my contact then with Sahaj Yoga for the first time. And later on I went to Germany soon after that, when I really when Sahaj Yoga grown on me, and I could dedicate more to the meditation and understand better the contact the contact with this vibration, that we can feel on our hand, in our body, and that was a very important moment for me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to listen to how someone gets introduced to something and then starts to immerse themselves into it. So, Paulo, what changes did you start experiencing or noticing after you started meditating? Anything you started experiencing differently?
So, as I said, in Brazil, I received the introduction to the meditation, right? So we had the first step, which is the realization, and then, but I could actually feel only that vibration when I was in Germany, when another Sahaj Yogi that meditated for so many years, he said, let's do a workshop when vibrationally uh, we work in each other. And he basically worked on me, and he said, now you can check your vibrations. And that moment was the moment that was the realization, no, where I felt all the cells of my body kind of exploding in a kind of ecstasy feeling. Was really powerful, really. It was like a bomb from inside to outside. And from that moment onwards, I could then unblock uh, my chakras, the perception of the vibration on in my fingers, in the tip of my fingers, and in my whole body as well. And from that moment onwards, then I said, it was when I realized that I had contact straight to the vital energy that we call Paramachaitanya.
And I don't know, Tanya, if this question is relevant to you or not, because you started meditating really early on. So I'm not sure if it's easy for you to comment on any changes you started noticing. But if you'd like to add anything here, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah, well, I would say that even if you have grown up in a meditation practice, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that you have the easy ride straight away. You know, I think meditation, it's also a very personal experience, and one has to, you know, really grow into that depth, into that awareness as anyone else, whether they were introduced to it as a child or not. And perhaps it's easier that you are around the environment where, you know, you understand about mantras and you understand about the power of the mantras, but as a child you're not really conscious of it as such. I mean, I speak for myself. You're just in that environment, but I think I really came to want to understand more about the science of the self and the science of the Atma and the science of this meditation practice when I was at university. So, or when I was, you know, at an age of 17, 18, 19, I wanted to understand it more deeply. And actually that's when I had very deep meditations because my desire was there. And I actually really wanted to, as Paulo said, you know, really understand this instrument that we have, you know, feel the vibrations and understand how our chakras are linked in a parasympathetic way, like throughout our body, and how we can balance ourselves accordingly if we're not in balance, how we can bring ourselves back into balance, and how we can learn from that experience. And it's one learns from one's own experience, and that's really if even if one is so-called born into Sahaja Yoga and just absorbs, I think it's not enough to say that you're necessarily a yogi, because you have to go through the trial and error and really, as Sri Mataji says, be one's own scientist and, you know, carry out the experiment on oneself to actually prove it to yourself. Because I think growing up, you can experience doubts and questioning, and that's actually very important to do, because it allows you to go on a quest, as it were, and to really discover what it means to you.
And at that point, I think it becomes more than just a following, more than something you do just because your parents did it. It's more validating to yourself
Right.
why you're doing what you're doing. And now that you're adults who have verified for yourselves, How would you say meditation helps you with your personal or professional challenges? I mean, the real world application of it.
Um, well, when you are in balance, everything else would be different. Your actions would be different, right? So that can be in your professional level or aspect, your family aspect, social aspect, and all the areas of our actions would be affected by our inner balance, as we are in peace, as we are in harmony. Um, and there is one other thing that I think the Chennai player that you told me once, the Indian
Bismillah Khan Sahib.
Bismillah Khan Sahib, he said, when you surrender your music to God, there is no way to go wrong. You are connected straight to God. You are surrendering yourself, your music, what you can create, to God straight away. And this is the feeling that I have personally as well, as a musician, but as a person as well. So when you do your meditation, you are surrendering yourself to something greater, um, and your day is blessed by this as well. So you are connected to that power, and this can be only good for our mind, our emotions, and all the other aspects of our being.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think first and foremost, it's about also addressing a mental state. You know, when people think of meditation, now meditation's a very popular thing to do, right? And a lot of people think about visualization or, bringing one's state of mind into, mindfulness and all sorts of things that are, now trendy. But I mean, the Vedantic philosophy of the practice of meditation and entering the Turiya state, this thoughtless awareness, this silence of thoughts, it's not just a blank state of nothingness. It's actually a presence of pure being, of being in the present moment, where one is not necessarily dictated by their thoughts, which is I don't see thoughts as being a bad thing, but it's just not that we're dominated by them. You see, so I think when one gets used to the practice of trying to attain this thoughtless awareness, as Srimati has taught us, then you start to actually appreciate that you are, going back to what Paulo said about surrendering yourself to a greater power or surrendering yourself to a greater flow. And you allow that flow to work through you if you have faith and if you surrender to it. And otherwise, I think we can be so caught up in the ego and the superego that we go through an array of emotions and confusions. But actually, when you enter that state, that real state of surrender, it is just joy, actually, because there's no ego involved and there's nothing that I need or I want you're just being. And that can be such a blessing, a blessed state to be in, because it just allows you to just be very natural, I'd say, just be to be really true to yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a state which may be difficult for some of us to even imagine, but I guess it's a state where the mind is not hijacking and leading us wherever it wants us to. And it's really a state I wish many of us could experience. But now, talking specifically about the benefits of meditation for music professionals, and I was reading that it has been scientifically proved that meditation strengthens the creative part of the brain. And divergent thinking is what they refer to as the ability to come up with different possible solutions. So, for instance, if you're creating a new song, if you're good at divergent thinking, you will likely generate a lot of ideas. Convergent thinking, on the other hand, they say relates to your ability to find commonalities. Now, for instance, if you wanted to create a song that was like a mix between Western and classical, your brain would find the common ground between those two elements. And it is studied that when you meditate, you get the ability for both kinds of thinking. And surely this becomes so valuable for your creativity and your music. And I totally see that in your work. And probably you are the best representation of that happening. So, do you feel you're just gifted, or do you feel that meditation does endow one with such kind of abilities?
Well, thank you very much for saying so. I don't think that we have. It's quite difficult to answer that question because I think, going back to the idea that if one meditates, you're in a state that's more about just being present in the moment. I don't think we self-consciously try. The music that we make is actually a product of ourselves.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So, the other thing, or one of the most known facts about meditation, is that it helps you to focus. And this can be very
Wow.
important for musicians because when you're practicing music, distractions can prevent you from truly focusing. And when you're performing live, there are so many distractions everywhere. So, are you able to tune out of distractions because you meditate?
I think you'd be good to answer that, Paulo.
Would I?
Yes.
Um, well, for me, is also I think the previous question and this one are very quite complicated to respond because music, for me especially, came much earlier than the meditation, and music was always a way for me to connect to this inner state as well, but differently than the meditation with sound. So basically, I go with the frequency of the wave of the sound, and that also has a power in itself of connecting us to our inner self. And for me, concentration has to do. For musician, you can also develop that kind in parallel to meditation, right? So I don't know if I would be able to respond only as a yogi because a musician, the music part came earlier than that. But it turns that the meditation what basically does for us is put our mind in silence. So expanding the space in between the thoughts and giving us the appreciation of the moment, of the present moment. And with that, in silence, you can then be completely in the present moment for whatever thing you are doing. It can be music, but can be any other thing as well.
It could be
in life.
even because you practice hatha yoga, no? So you also like a flow of movement or dance or actually any activity, I think.
And also, we may not be conscious or aware of the benefit ourselves, but now with so much research, they're finding, all of these things about meditation and its effect on music and music professionals. They say it's good for dexterity, which is good for playing an instrument. They say it's good for your stage presence because it improves reaction times, prevents muscular tension, increases confidence, and, just helps you be more present when you're performing. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the emoting piece. Now, playing or singing technically correct is one thing, but the game changer is the emoting piece. And if we don't get the emotion right, or if we don't convey it right, the connect is lost. So, would you be able to comment on the subtlety needed to understand emotions for music?
Well, I speak as a singer. Singing is instinctively emotional. I feel it is anyway, and I mean, whether it's linked to meditation, it's, I think when one sings devotional music, certainly, you know, you just, if you, if one can really enter that state of bhakti, then actually there's moments when I feel like I've never sung better, because my heart is so invested in the expression, because it's you know, it's, the longing is so there, and there's also, like I said before, there's no ego. It's not about singing for myself or singing even for the audience. It's about singing to God. And that's what also can make the voice so sweet, or can make the expression so much sweeter. As Paulo was talking about Ustad Bismillah Khan, we recently watched a clip of him talking about when he also reaches that state where he's no longer, he doesn't know what he's playing anymore, but he's just sort of surrendered. And I think that is a moment for a musician that is really a blessing, because you really just feel like an instrument. Um,
And also in meditation, refine so much your perceptions and refine yourself as a person. You understand better about yourself, about your psychologic waves, your thoughts, and your emotions. So by knowing better your emotions, you can also connect to them easier. So I think someone that meditates, like all the aspects in life improves, and one of them is what is very important, and I consider one of the most important things of nowadays, of this current time, is having to develop an emotional intelligence. And that's only possible when we understand our emotions.
True, and I always say that the EQ part is so much more important than the IQ part. So, an important aspect for a singer or musician is to hear music more accurately, about which we are often told by our teachers, ustads, what they refer to as the ear training. But what's surprising about meditation is it helps with the issue of selective hearing, a phenomenon of the mind through which you just tune out the things you do not want to hear. Now, we all are aware of this term selective hearing, but we refer to it mostly in terms of selectively hearing conversations. But the term isn't used as much with music. But when we selectively hear, we also very well tune out the bad parts or the notes and only get comfortable and start to enjoy the good parts of our work, which can seriously interfere with the work, because we do need to hear the bad parts in order to improve upon them. So, the Weizmann Laboratory for Brain Imaging and Behavior at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, they studied the effect of meditation on listening skills. And this is a study they did in 2009. They discovered that meditation helps you pay more attention to the things you do not want to hear. In other words, if you're a meditator, you will be able to focus on the weaknesses of the music where improvement is needed. So, do you want to say anything about the ability to listen better? Maybe not just music, maybe people in general.
why are you laughing?
If you want to add something.
Well, I think it's an interesting point, because I've recently been told off for being very self-critical, because I think we can all be critical, but I think you're right in saying that when you meditate, you have a lot of space and time to introspect.
Our experience actually is like when we play for Sahaj yogis, for yogis, people that meditate, our experience as artists on the stage is totally different, because we can see that they absorb what we are giving, and they are present, and they are listening not only with the ears but also with their antennas, like like they are feeling, they are listening, they feel the vibration of the sound on their body. And that's the most amazing thing, because we can exchange easier that energy.
So great that you bring up these subtler points because we're not taking the time to think about these or even talk about these. It's not just about listening through the ear, like you said, it's so much about absorbing music. That's a great point. So, Tanya, when I was researching, I read that you mentioned somewhere that since being married to Paulo, you've just tuned your ear away from programmed sounds. And you mentioned that you really like the sound of live instruments, real instruments. It is a great thing that you bring this up in these times where music is becoming highly digitalized. Would you want to elaborate more on that?
Well, yeah, but for our second album or EP, we really chose to just strip everything back just to a sort of foundational sound of guitar and voice, and just to really work on experiencing that vibration between these two instruments, the guitar and voice. And because, like you said, there's so much noise that you can get drowned out very, very easily nowadays with music. But I think stripping back always allows for something very, just something beautiful in its own right. You know, we decided that for our Senses EP, we wouldn't have much on it, and I think there's something really raw because it's just your instrument and my instrument without much sort of beats and everything else, and I think also when you just hear those two instruments, you can zone into something really intimate, and that's what we were going for. But I think everyone has a right to express how they feel, and of course the digital world, or like making digital music, is not gonna go away anytime soon. And I think it's just a sort of a way of our expression. Sorry, I don't know if I'm making myself understood.
I can say something about that. I think it has to do like this way that the music took from the old time when the music was tuned in different ways, like was low, very lower frequency compared to much lower frequency compared to nowadays. The music was made in a more natural, more connected to nature. So you see, like the in the Western music we have the Baroque and the Renaissance, and in that time the music was tuned very lower, much lower compared to nowadays, like 416 hertz, and nowadays it's like and then it has increased, like then established the sound of the nature that they establish as 432 hertz. But then with the system of the German, especially the Nazi in power, and there was a composer called Wagner, and together with Hitler, they established how is the way that they could control people's mind through music as well. So they established the tuning of 440 as standard, and that is just going up and up now, and everything became more digitalized, more electronic, more noisy and louder. Everything is louder nowadays. If you compare to in the 50s, 60s, the music launched in that time was much more, much softer, and much richer in frequencies. Much.
In the 50s and 60s, but Hitler was in the 40s, no?
Yeah, but I'm talking about the loudness now, not the frequency anymore.
Okay.
There are two different things, of course, different elements. One thing is the frequency that nowadays is crazy. It's like 444, 48 in some orchestras here in Europe. So What what I feel is that we lost a lot of our perceptions, musical perceptions, and we what we try to do at Seven Eyes is basically bring a bit of peace through music, and spread a bit of a good moment, a good frequency to the listeners, and because of that, we try not to go too much into this industry that is basically damaging people's hearing and the appreciation of arts.
That's really great information that you shared, Paulo. And I have one more question before I request you to sing or play something for us. Uplifting, mesmerizing, everything that you want music to do is what the BBC Asian Network mentions about your band. And then there is this wonderful Indie Berlin review. Then there's Paulo's awards and his appreciation from music masters themselves. And then you have all of that recognition and media attention. So I do want to ask you that as a meditator, how do you see these accomplishments and how do you handle the fame and the success? Because in my opinion, that is the part, if done right, helps one sustain and grow continuously.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, for us, I think it's really about the work, and of course, it's wonderful to get recognition and to, have someone like Jimmy Page commend your playing, and these things are all really wonderful. But it doesn't necessarily motivate you to create. It's not that. It's not that wills you, makes you to get you out of bed every day and to create. There's something much more beyond that, and I think the response is a consequence of the actions, but what feeds the action is that, again, that quest, that need to create, that need to fulfill, or that need to express a feeling. So I would say that it's not so important. It's not necessarily so important. It's a consequence, and it's lovely to get recognition and blessings from your elders and people that you really appreciate as well. But it's not. It's not why we do it.
For me, it's something that, of course, it's important not to be attached to these type of things that comes to us, because actually we as artists, you have a very critical view about what we are producing, and when we release that and people we know how better we could have done that, but people absorb that as a great stuff, the most amazing thing that happened to we listen to so many of these beautiful things that nourishes us as artists, but we know internally that we want to do better than that, so we take that as a motivation for our next step. So we are not very attached to do these beautiful things that comes, but we take them also. They are welcome because we feel we are on a journey, and this is being positive. So what are you looking?
No, it's just because I was saying that we don't necessarily take it as a
I
means
take
to create.
it.
Yeah,
I
that's
take
nice.
it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I take, but with no attachment, because no ego.
Of course.
But to understand that when, for example, I'm saying that we are very critical. I am very critical when we listen to a song that we released, then we are not, oh, maybe we could have done a little different this and that. But when we have someone coming to us and saying such a beautiful thing, we see that's working actually. That means that this is a good thing. We've done a good thing, although we know that it can be better. and that's only good because we only grow, no, by saying that to ourselves. We want to do better for the next time.
Yeah. I would just like to add to that, you're right, that receiving positive feedback, obviously it's when anyone receives something positive from something that they have given, fully with their hearts, then of course it allows that positivity to act, it feels good and it does actually inspire you to create more. So
You see?
I take
I convinced
back
her.
whoever's yeah. Right.
All right. So now's the moment that I'd been waiting for when I would like to request you to perform something for us.
You say what it is?
Okay, so this year we've been releasing monthly singles, and one of those singles was a lovely qawwali called Man Kuntu Mola, which is actually one of the first written qawwalis written by Hazrat Amir Khusro. And Man Kuntu Mola Faza Aliun Mola means if I am the master, Ali is also the master. So this is something the Prophet Muhammad had said. And we're both huge fans of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and of Sufi music in general. So this is just a tribute to that height of beautiful Sufi music and to Nusrat.
It was absolutely silencing. And this is the moment where I would say silence is bigger than applause. And I don't want to choose words and make the impact any smaller than what it was for me, but your music took me to a level where I did not want to talk. But I guess I'll have to go back to the recording to enjoy my silencing bit. But thank you so much for the purity in your music. And thank you so much for being a message of unity and diversity. It was really lovely connecting with both of you, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you,
It will be a
Monica.
pleasure. Thank you for inviting us. It was really pleasant for us to be part of it.